Hello there guys, I wanted to just say thank you so much for the 200 subscribers. If you guys are here now and you are one of those 200 subscribers, then thank you guys. You are here from the beginning. I have so much more that I want to bring out for you guys, and I'm excited to show you. And one of those is this right here. This is the Book of Beautiful Horrors. As you guys may or may not know, recently Netflix has released the Witcher TV show, and it is absolutely fantastic. If you are a fan of Dungeons and Dragons and that kind of stuff, probably your cup of tea. And this right here is a free PDF, link in the description, that you guys can go and get, and it adds a bunch, as you can see, a bunch of new creatures to Dungeons and Dragons, all complete stat blocks and everything. This is beautiful. I've been looking over this over the last couple of days, and this is fantastic. Now, I do think this has been out for a little while, but I've only just discovered it, and I couldn't wait to show you guys. It has some fantastic artwork on the front, some loads of lore and lore information, which is like really brilliant, and this thing is fully fleshed out as well, so this is fantastic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out some of my top picks, and I'm just going to scroll through it, and we're going to just talk about it and take a look at it together. So if you guys played the games, then you likely know about the crones. This is one of the most interesting and fun quest lines in The Witcher 3, and they actually have them here, so they talk about them, ancient monstrosities. And if you guys have played D&D as well, then you know that hags in D&D don't tend to be too interesting or too special, so definitely something like this is like a welcome addition to the game. I mean, they have the stat blocks here, and these actually make crones and witches like incredibly dangerous and deadly. These are challenge rating 15 creatures right here, and they have a variety of really cool abilities and legendary actions that I just wish more hags in D&D kind of had stuff like this. For example, they are really good at casting a variety of different hexes. Boiling Blood, Doomed, Leech Twisted, all of these are really interesting. One of them actually reducing a target's charisma to 1. Can you imagine something like that cast on a warlock or a paladin, a bard? This would just be like insane. So this is a crazy character stat block. I absolutely love this. This is fab. And you can see as we continue down, they have different types as well. So you have, and this is something that's common with this PDF, right? They have a general stat block, and then they have information on how to improve that stat block and make it something a little bit different, so you can see the different types of crones here. So one thing that I really like about this document, and I think you guys will too, is that there are some similarities within D&D and The Witcher, right? Like both of them have ghouls, but what they've not tried to do in this document is they haven't tried to recreate the ghoul. What they've done instead is they've just added more varieties to those monsters. So a big part of The Witcher is vampires. Vampires are their own separate species, and there's a variety of different types in The Witcher lore. In D&D we have one type, and it's pretty bare bones and simple. Now, vampires are an awesome enemy type, but this really does a good job of expanding upon them. They have a whole bunch of lore and the creation myth and the different types of vampires, and they have them all here. If you're a fan of the Witcher books and you're a fan of the Witcher in general, I highly recommend this PDF. If you don't know what the Witcher is but you like D&D, this is going to be like your bread and butter. I noticed that this document does actually contain a little bit of nudity, especially within the vampire section, so I'm going to try and just show you the pages that have just plain stat blocks on them while I talk about them. But you notice that they have a variety of different types of vampires on here from the previous page I was showing you, and I like that they are expanding upon this this vampire lore and this vampire mythos, adding in the Witcher mythos, which is far more interesting than I think the D&D general mythos of vampires is. We also have lair actions and lair traits and variant types of vampires, which is really interesting, again giving you additional ways of basically customizing your vampires. Now, one of the interesting things about the Witcher vampires is that you kind of have higher and lesser vampires. Lesser vampires being more feral in nature, and this is a concept I really enjoy, and that is kind of this idea of like vampires such as the Fledders, and basically acting as savage killers, like ripping opponents apart. And we have here these stat blocks, which are brilliant and can be introduced at low levels. So you don't have to just like introduce vampires to your campaign. In terms of vampire spawn, if you want to introduce lower level vampires, you can use fully fledged vampires, but they are just weaker, lesser vampires from this document. So this is really cool. If you plan on introducing vampires as a major part of your campaign, you can literally find a vampire stat block for almost any level. Finally, we're going to talk about the higher vampire. You can see that the higher vampire is a challenge rating 23 creature. This is a tough fight for a full party to deal with and encounter. But these things are, you know, their stat blocks are full. I mean, if you're looking for a way to make Strahd a little bit more dangerous in the Curse of Strahd campaign, then making him one of these things instead is one hell of a way to do that. And same, we've got some variants here as well, so you can pick some additional ways of customizing that stat block to make it a little bit more interesting. Now, would we be able to talk about The Witcher without talking about the Wild Hunt? Probably one of the most interesting and cool additions in the Witcher universe is this Wild Hunt. They remind me quite a lot of like Nazguls and Ringwraiths, just constantly hunting for creatures, and we are given full stat blocks on these. I mean, these guys even get their own section. I mean, I'm just scrolling through just the Wild Hunt section right here, and you can see just how much information there is on them. And you use the Hounds of the Wild Hunt in order to close the gap so that the melee fighters can get in as well and also engage with your opponent. So this is really interesting. I'm glad they did include something like this into this PDF, because these guys are brilliant. Now, we also have massive sections expanding the lore on the Wraiths. Wraiths, again, in D&D are just one monster. There's only one monster called the Wraith. But here we actually have a bunch of different cool stuff like relating to Wraiths and about what they are and what they can do, including fully fledged out stat blocks for them. And I really like this kind of stuff, guys. This is really cool. These make Wraiths, like, again, this more dangerous and more scary creature in D&D. And again, any information, any stat blocks, any PDFs or anything like that that expand the content that we already have for D&D, I am more than excited to kind of look at. So the final section I wanted to kind of focus on is Appendix A, because this talks about non-player characters. And the first section we get here is about crowds. Now, this is really cool because the idea of doing like a mob uprising and kind of riots, you can do with these stat blocks. These stat blocks are really interesting. And of course, you can have the idea being, if you defeat an uprising, if your players are able to stop an uprising and basically kill enough people, it goes down to a riot. And then if you kill the riot, it goes down to a mob. I like as well that we have, you know, more stat blocks basically for our humans and NPC characters, Sea Raiders and Shield Maidens and Scald and, you know, Thanes. We have these things here, which means that there's a lot more customizability for our NPC characters that we introduce to our players. Now, this is a really interesting section that they've included, and it is titled Villains. You've got a whole section now dedicated to villains, interesting, fun villains for you guys to go ahead and look at and use in your own campaign. Can you imagine if your character is a spellcaster and in the world that you are playing your games, spellcasting is illegal, and all of a sudden they just have witch hunters trying to track them down and find them and execute them on a, you know, regular scale? This is going to be an interesting concept. I love this concept in a D&D world. It adds this layer of depth, and these creatures, you know, nowhere is safe. Even if you're a spellcaster, even in your own, you know, city of birth, you are not safe. So this is fun. So all in all, guys, I think this is a fantastic PDF. I mean, having a look through it, I've looked through this over the last several days. There's a lot of additional information here. It doesn't rehash things that we've seen in the Monster Manual or previous books. This is free. It is about 210 pages of just pure goodness. I highly recommend you pick this up. The link is, of course, in the description. I highly recommend this, guys. Definitely give it a look. Shout out to the person who made this. I could not find out who it was at all, sorry. But this is absolutely fantastic. Really recommend.